powerful international crime leader named Liam McCaffrey dies in prison at 76. His son, Dan, who secretly works as a government assassin, plans a romantic surprise for his wife Jessica during their date night. While she waits at a bar, he sneaks into a nearby room by climbing the outside wall like it's just another Tuesday. Inside, Jessica finds a small box. Dan tells her to open it, revealing a necklace. Before she can react, he quickly appears behind her and puts it around her neck. Smooth! Almost too smooth. Their moment is interrupted when their son Kyle calls to complain that little Max has made a huge mess at home. Romance officially canceled.
Go take care.
We have to. He's never sick.
Let's go.
Later, the family visits Jessica's parents' house for a gathering. The place is crowded and lively. During the celebration, Kyle accidentally sends a knife flying toward Jessica's mother, but Dan catches it instantly with sharp reflexes.
It's right there.
Everyone laughs nervously, except Kyle, who probably rethinks touching kitchen tools again. At dinner, Dan talks to his daughter Nina, who lives in London. During the conversation, Jessica's father mentions their infamous criminal grandfather, not knowing he's actually Dan's father. Jessica later apologizes, but Dan shrugs it off, saying his current family matters more. Jessica then speaks privately with Nina, who reveals her mother has accepted a job in Ohio,
It means moving to Ohio.
but hasn't told Dan yet. Jessica encourages her to tell him soon. As Christmas approaches, Dan is upset that Nina can't come home this year. Jessica reminds him Nina is grown up now, but he still struggles with it. Soon after, Dan receives a work request to inspect security at a London bank. While teaching Kyle how to drive, which already feels risky, he tells the family about the trip. Jessica isn't thrilled about spending Christmas in London,
I thought you'd be thrilled.
No, I just think that we should enjoy Christmas.
but Dan insists on having everyone together. Suddenly, Kyle crashes the car. Decision made, London it is. They arrive in London and surprise Nina at her apartment.
Merry Christmas, Beans.
You're early.
While Kyle heads to the bathroom, he realizes someone is in the shower. Nina's boyfriend Omar walks out, and Dan immediately panics like every protective father in movie history. Nina introduces them properly. Jessica seems impressed by Omar's muscles, while Dan clearly is not. Omar stays friendly anyway.
Yes, Daddy. You just call me Daddy?
The next day, Omar shows the kids some parkour moves. Max tries to copy him and falls. Everyone rushes over, but Omar tells Dan not to be overly protective, explaining that his own father never supported him and now they don't speak. Dan quietly understands. The following morning, Dan visits the bank and quickly studies the security system, already figuring out how to bypass a hidden entrance. The manager arrives, and Dan demonstrates how weak the system is by easily disabling it.
I cloned someone's card.
This is already depressing.
The manager is impressed, probably also terrified. Meanwhile, Jessica practices how to tell Dan about the Ohio job. Suddenly, someone rings the bell, shocking her. Back at the bank, Dan and the manager head toward the vault. When a worker approaches, Dan distracts him and secretly takes his access card. Inside the vault, Dan suddenly grabs the manager in a chokehold, realizing he's an imposter. The man reveals Jessica has been kidnapped and forces Dan to open a locker containing a small box. Inside is a key. The criminal reveals himself as Finn, Dan's half-brother, showing an old photo of them as children. Finn explains Dan must take the blame for the robbery or Jessica will die. With no choice, Dan pretends to escape with Finn as a hostage.
You're doing great, Sharp.
I got you, Outward.
Jessica is released, but police alarms begin ringing. They run through alleys and hide in a shop, even stealing a woman's handbag to cover the gun taped to Jessica's hand. Worst shopping trip ever. Meanwhile, Finn realizes Dan secretly kept the key. Dan calls the kids, telling them to leave immediately.
I said, put your sister on.
The family reunites in a crowded market while Finn chases them. They escape onto a bus, but Finn follows them inside, angrily talking about his lonely childhood and jealousy of Dan's family. He insults the kids, making Nina upset. When he demands the key, Dan attacks him. A fight breaks out upstairs on the bus. Finn pulls a knife, and Jessica tries to help by hitting him with a fire extinguisher and spraying him. which mostly just makes a mess. Finn grabs her, but Dan throws the key out the window onto a passing bicycle and jumps off to retrieve it. Later, the family hides in a restaurant. Kyle tells Dan he prefers Jessica's side of the family, which secretly makes Jessica proud. Dan says they're waiting for help. Soon, an old Chinese friend arrives and gives Dan supplies as repayment for past help. Nina asks about Finn, and Dan explains everything. Dan decides they must leave London for safety, even though Nina protests because her life is there. Omar, still eating during this serious conversation, agrees to come along when asked. Priorities: survival second, food first. They escape by boat and travel to Paris. Dan feels guilty because Kyle is angry with him. Nina says Kyle has a right to be upset since Dan's past caused all this trouble. Dan accepts that.
I saw how happy you were there. I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, Finn visits Liam's old mansion. The loyal butler Vikram recognizes him. Finn claims he's taking over the family business and proves it by showing the key. Vikram reluctantly lets him in and leads him through the mansion. Finn tears down old family photos and enters a hidden chamber. Placing the key into a lock, he turns it, ready to claim his father's legacy. After turning the key in the hidden chamber, a massive control system activates, giving Finn access to the entire criminal network his father once ran. Meanwhile, Dan and his family arrive in Paris. He reveals he actually grew up there, something even Jessica didn't know. He explains Finn is in the city too, and the only way to end this is to confront him. For now, they hitch a ride on a transport truck. Kyle complains about being hungry and homeless, and Dan admits he knows a place to stay, though Jessica definitely won't like it. They arrive at the home of Dan's ex-girlfriend Lana, a former Russian spy. Jessica already dislikes the situation before meeting her. Lana opens the door, thrilled to see Dan,
Oh, still so handsome.
then notices his wedding ring and immediately loses some excitement. Jessica proudly confirms she's the wife. Awkward introductions complete. Inside, Lana shows Jessica a newspaper with Jessica's face in the headlines, then cooks for everyone. At lunch, Dan asks Lana to help him send a message to his father's encrypted server. She's surprised, since Liam is dead, but Dan explains someone else has taken control. Max devours the food happily, while Kyle hesitates until Lana orders him to eat, which somehow works. Later, Dan tells Jessica he wants to stop Finn without killing him, believing their father's influence shaped who Finn became. He arranges to meet Finn at a museum where weapons aren't allowed. At the meeting, Finn admits he always admired and envied Dan's life growing up. Dan tells him it's not too late to change, but Finn mocks him as father's favorite. Dan slaps him,
Oh, Daddy's little principal.
then calmly says they're still family and he can come back anytime. Finn refuses, claiming he now owns the Empire, and leaves after threatening insults. Dan warns him not to touch his family again.
You're my family again. I'm gonna tear you apart.
Back at the mansion, Finn hires assassins, offering triple payment to anyone who kills Dan. Elsewhere, Dan checks out Lana's weapons stash. Jessica realizes the meeting failed, and they now need to defend themselves. Since it's Christmas in Paris, Dan tries to lift everyone's mood with a snowy boat ride on Christmas Eve. That night, Lana invites Dan for a drink. After he finishes it, she tearfully admits she drugged him because there's a bounty on his head. She can't kill him herself, so she plans to hand him over to assassins. Feeling guilty, she gives Jessica her car keys. Dan collapses as
What's wrong here? What's wrong?
the family rushes to the garage. The car is old and barely working, but they have no choice. Assassins surround the house, and Kyle is forced to drive. He crashes through the exit, leading to a chaotic chase through narrow Paris streets. Restaurants get smashed, bullets fly, and the back window shatters.
Oh my god! Happy New Year!
Oh my god!
Basically Kyle's worst driving lesson ever. Their slow car barely survives the pursuit, but clever turns and a risky stairway escape cause the enemy cars to crash into each other. By morning, the family hides safely on a rooftop. Dan says he'll send them somewhere safe and handle Finn alone, but the kids refuse. They insist on facing this together as a family. They sit down and plan their next move. Dan explains they'll never be safe while Finn controls Liam's network. At a nearby restaurant, Dan points out the mansion where he grew up, a huge estate that shocks everyone. Through binoculars, he spots the old butler Vikram still there. Dan outlines the plan. The mansion is protected by snipers and cameras, so they'll enter from the roof. They use body communicators to stay connected. Omar eagerly volunteers to help Dan. Kyle gives Dan a flash drive that can erase the network's data if plugged into the main terminal. Omar offers to create a distraction outside. Finally, Dan tells Jessica that if anything goes wrong inside, she must take the family and leave immediately. Everyone agrees to the plan. Dan and Omar climb onto the mansion roof using gear from Lana's house, while the rest of the family waits in a car, listening through the communicators. On the terrace, Dan and Omar begin redirecting the security cameras. Finn senses something is wrong. They spot a sniper, so Dan starts recording to capture Finn's voice later. The two split up. Omar distracts the sniper while Dan sneaks behind and disarms him. A suppressed gunshot is heard, shocking the family, but Dan survives and the sniper goes down. Finn radios in to check on the sniper. Kyle cuts into the signal and accidentally fills the line with loud insults. Finn is stunned. When he asks Vikram if Liam would allow this chaos, Vikram calmly replies, Liam wouldn't approve of many things happening now. Then disconnects. Outside, Nina redirects a group of Greenpeace protesters toward the mansion, creating a loud distraction. Police arrive and question her, while Omar steps in and causes enough trouble to get himself arrested instead, letting Nina escape. Inside the mansion, Dan finds a stash he hid as a child and uses a fork to open a window, dropping into his old room. He's surprised his father kept his childhood items, but Finn arrives with armed assassins and Vikram. Finn tries to shoot Dan, but Vikram insists on moving him elsewhere. As they escort him away, Dan secretly drops the flash drive and signals his family to leave. Finn discovers Dan's earpiece and camera, destroys them, and sends a threatening goodbye message. Jessica decides to go inside herself. She climbs across the rooftop, making a risky jump she barely manages. Inside, she finds the drive, while Dan is taken to the dungeon. Vikram secretly helps Dan escape by activating a hidden mechanism, saying his loyalty is to Liam and protecting his son. Finn angrily headbutts him. Jessica reaches the control system and plugs in the drive so Kyle can begin hacking. An assassin enters the room, forcing Jessica to hide in a wardrobe. When discovered, she fights back using nearby objects, eventually knocking the assassin out. In the dungeon, Dan escapes pursuing assassins by turning off the lights and ambushing them among wine shelves. Meanwhile, Nina and Kyle try to start the car outside, but it fails. Kyle finally completes the hack as they run toward a park, calling protesters to slow the remaining assassin. Jessica reaches the car but panics when the kids aren't there. She finds them at a nearby ride in the park just as police arrive. Back in the mansion, Finn checks the system, relieved at first, until the hack begins deleting everything. His money and network disappear in seconds. Dan confronts him, and Finn pulls a gun. They struggle and crash onto the roof, then continue fighting near a chapel bell. Dan keeps trying to reason with him, but Finn refuses. At the park, Jessica helps stop the last assassin and calls the police for help. Back at the chapel, Dan finally ties Finn up and leaves him hanging safely until authorities arrive. Police arrest Finn, and then Dan as well, though the family stays together nearby. Kyle proudly reveals he redirected Liam's stolen money to Greenpeace, probably the most expensive donation in history. Omar soon appears with his father, the Secretary General of Interpol. Dan is annoyed. Omar never mentioned that earlier. Omar claims he tried, but no one listened. Jessica finally tells Dan about her job in Ohio, and instead of being upset, he's excited and congratulates her. 11 months later, the family lives together in Ohio again. At Christmas, Dan visits Finn in prison and returns the coat he took earlier. They sit down to play cards, and Finn laughs for the first time in years. And that's the recap of The Family Plan 2. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon.